What's up? Maybe eventually I'll come up with like a fun intro. I thought it'd be fun to make this chair while I talk because I've been making chairs for a good couple hours now because my job told me to make chairs when I got here. So this is the 7th chair I've made. I got halfway through it and then remembered that I was gonna talk while I made this chair. So we're gonna make this chair. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me over all this chair making, but here we go. So, that was loud. When I was 15, 14? 14. When I was 14, I was a freshman in high school. I was just barely figuring out who I was, what I was, how I felt about it. Didn't know anything. And it was the middle of the year, so it was like halfway through the semester, and I went to my health teacher, and I had asked my health teacher if there were like gender neutral dressing rooms that I could use for my gym class that I was taking the next semester, and she said she'll get back to me, and I said okay. But before that, during that class period, we had, I'm just gonna rewind. So during this time, for like a few days before this happened, I was going around and I was just kind of like messing around with people, and I was like, we don't know what gender is. Who is she? And I was going around and I'm like, hey y'all, what if I change my name? And I was like, I would go around and every day I just kind of had a different name that I would choose, which was fun. That's kind of what some people do, is what I've heard. And that day we had guest speakers in the class. I had health first period, we had guest speakers, and they were going around, we all stood in a circle. They went around and asked everyone their name to take attendance. So they got to me, and I had asked them, just jokingly, because I'm 14 and freshmen don't know anything, and I had jokingly asked them if I could be Kyle. And Missy is a sweetheart. We love Missy. We stan Missy. I don't remember her last name, but that's okay, now you can't stalk her. And she was just the nicest little lady. She was like, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like, what's your last name? Let's get it changed on our roster. And I was just so amazed at how like seriously I was being taken by someone I had never met before, especially because I was a teenager. And that just kind of like sparked something in me. So then after that class, I went to my health teacher and I asked her, you know, if there were gender neutral bathrooms, and she said, I'll get back to you. And I said, okay, because it wasn't for another week or two. So later, I got called into the counselor's office, and the counselor was talking to me, and he was really cool. I like him. And he was asking me, you know, is there like basically trying to figure out why I wanted a gender neutral dressing room. So I was telling him, like, you know, I don't really know what's going on. I'm just kind of pursuing things, you know, trying to figure out like who I am. And he said, okay. So he came, I left, he came and got me a couple class periods later, pulled me out of class, and he, first thing out of his mouth was, so I called your mom. And the sheer look of horror in my face was just enough to key him in to the fact that I hadn't told my mom yet. Because this was like the first day I had been going around and kind of just being a boy for the first time. Because I went through the rest of my classes that day and was telling everyone, hey, call me Kyle. Like, that's, like, I thought I was being hilarious, but I was also really wanting just to be me. Like, that just felt right to me. So I was going around to all my classes and writing Kyle on my papers, and that got enough people wondering if that's, kind of what I wanted to do. So my classmates started coming up to me and asking me like, hey, is this like, do you want to keep doing this, or is that just for today? And I'm like, I don't know, but just kind of do it until, if you want to, just kind of keep doing it. And they're like, okay, which was fine. It was the people at my school were actually surprisingly very relaxed about it. I wasn't expecting that to happen. And so, back to the initial point, my counselor called my mom. I looked horrified, and he just looked at me for a second. Like, he stopped talking dead in his tracks, and he looked at me, and he said, was I not supposed to do that? And I just kind of shook my head at him, and I didn't know what to say, because I was just so overwhelmed with panic, because I didn't know how she was going to react, because I'd been purposefully not telling anybody at this point. So he apologized, and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I thought you might have talked to her already, like, I can call her back and say I'm a new counselor, I mixed up the students. And I just kind of nodded a little bit, and he said, okay, I'll go fix it, go back to class. And he apologized again. So I went back to class. That was a fun day. I went back to class, everything was fine. I went through all my classes and thoroughly confused all of my teachers, all of my classmates, which was a good time. I got a lot of questions that day about if I wanted, to be someone else, like if I wanted to be a boy, if I wanted people to use different pronouns, if I wanted people to keep using Kyle as my actual name. And I didn't know how to respond to them, because I didn't know, because my internal struggle, my internal confusion about who I wasn't really internal at this point. It was very common knowledge throughout the school, which I didn't want, but it wasn't something I was opposed to, because that way it was kind of easier for me to come out, because everyone was kind of going through it with me. So that night, I go home, and when I'm going home, I'm just dreading it, 100%. Because I know, as soon as my mom comes through that door, she's gonna want to talk to me. So my mom comes home, we're talking, doesn't mention anything, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's fine. Maybe this is fine. And then I go upstairs to use the bathroom, and she follows me upstairs. And that's when I know she's gonna want to talk to me. So I go to the bathroom. Her room and my bathroom are catty cornered. So I go in the bathroom. She sits on the edge of her bed and just waits for me. Doesn't go on her phone, just sits there patiently waiting for me. I go out. My heart is just pounding at this point, because I know what's gonna happen. She's gonna talk to me. I don't know what she's gonna say though, and that's really the big anxiety factors. I don't know how she's gonna react to it. So I come out of the bathroom. She kind of looks at me and she's like, come here. And I'm like, do I have to? I didn't say that. I really wanted to, because I really didn't want to. And I go sit down, and she looks at me and she's like, oh, I got a call from your school today. And that's not really anything any kid likes to hear, especially if you're in grade school, where if your parents are like, I got a call from your school, that usually means oh, I'm in trouble. So I look at her, I'm like, oh, what did they say? And she told me that they called and said that I had wanted to use different locker rooms. And she asked if that was true, and I was like, yeah, I was asking about it. I was curious. And she was very calm, she was very patient. She could tell that I was nervous. My mom knows me very well. And she just I don't remember if she asked if I was trans or if I told her, because it was 5 years ago, but the subject came up, and then she looked at me and asked me to explain what being transgender meant. And I asked her if she didn't know. I was like, do you not know what it means? She's like, no, I know what it means. I want to know what it means to you. Which sounds really cool coming from, you know, like a kid standpoint, where if your parent asks you to describe like what your definition of it is, that's a very like understanding standpoint. So I told her, like, I was born in the wrong body. I feel more like a boy than anything else. And she said okay. And at this point, I have an older brother. He's 3 years older than me. At this point, he was in therapy. So she asked me if I wanted to start seeing a therapist. And that didn't sit right with me because I've never had like a really conscious positive feeling about therapy. But that's not because therapy's bad. That's not because I think therapy is like a negative thing. That's just because that's what societal standards have put on me, is that it's, you know, for people who can't handle things, you know, which is absolutely not true. And I'm in therapy now, but that was just kind of my underlying notion, was that it's that she wants to fix me, basically. So I looked at her and I was like, I don't want to be fixed. Like it's not wrong. She's like, no, I know that it's not. It doesn't need to be fixed. Just, you know, so you can have someone to talk through about it, because your brother's in therapy. Mind you, my brother at this point was 17 years old, and he is very gay. He came out a few years, like about 3 or 4 years before I did, I want to say. No, wait. No, about 2 years before I did. And the reason I was so afraid to come out was because I had watched what happened when he came out. And it was mostly on our dad, because he wasn't as great as he could have been. But what dads are. So I was just 100% scared of what would happen. She asked me if I wanted to see a therapist. I told her no, and she said okay. She said, let's... And then we had to drop my brother off somewhere because he didn't drive. And she said, let's go drop off your brother. Let's go take a drive. I said, okay. So we went. I'm still kind of nervous. We went. We were driving around. We were talking about it. I honestly don't remember all of what we were talking about in the car or anywhere else we went. We just kind of ended up hanging out, which was good. We went to a Fred Meyer. We just wandered around it for over an hour, because, you know, that's a really like emotional thing to throw on someone, is that you tell them that you're trans, or even you yourself being trans, not knowing 100% what's going on or what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and then having everyone else in your life know. That's a lot. Like, that's gonna take a lot on you, especially at 14. So we just walk around the store and we have a good time. And then like about a month later, in November, for Thanksgiving break, my dad comes to town, because my dad lives a few states away. So my dad comes to town, and I absolutely love spending time with my dad when I was a kid. Like, he wasn't home very often, so when he was, I was just all over it. I was like, hell yeah, let's go do things. And we were in a Walmart, and we walked by, like we were walking in the middle of the clothing section, and he looked over at the bra and panty section, trademark, and asked if I needed any, but having just figured out that I was a boy, or even just having it come from your father, it was really awkward, and I just was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to walk through it. And he was like, what, you don't want to walk through? And I'm like, no, I don't, I'm good. I don't need anything. Like, he hasn't asked me if I needed anything else in the store, mind you. It was just if I needed a bra. And so he kind of just, like, took that, and he was like, okay. So we left. Very shortly after that, we got in the car, and no sooner had we gotten out of the parking lot did he ask me, do you not want to look at the bras because you feel like you're a boy? Which is a huge jump. Like, that's just a leap. Like, that's just going from, like, canyon to ground level. That's just out of the park, right? So my mom 100% told him. Because they were divorced, but they were still talking a little bit. So I know that she told him. Neither one of them told me that. But I knew, because you're not just gonna know that. Like once, I'm sure once my counselor told my mom that I was trans, then, like, it clicks, like, it makes sense as to why, like, that's something. But just knowing that based off of that one fact is completely just out of the water. So I told him yes. And I was really scared, but because I didn't know what was gonna happen. So we sit in the car, we're driving, and we don't talk a whole lot about it anymore. It was just kind of him getting that confirmation from me that just him getting that confirmation from me that I do actually want to be a boy, you know? Or I was. So I never got the chance to come out to my parents. They have always confronted me about it. No matter when I came out as bi, when I came out as trans, when, you know, at this point, I've just gone through everything. They don't expect anything out of me anymore. So I don't have that past experience of coming out to, like, the people that are most important to my life, like the people who raised me. So now I don't know how to do it to new people, because the only person I have come out to on purpose was my aunt, and I texted her on lunch break and throughout my next period when I was at high school. Sorry, I haven't slept in like 3 days. But I just feel like being able to come out to your parents is such a fundamental thing in anybody's, like, transition, or, you know, realizing that you're gay. It just kind of builds on how you introduce it to newer people, like other people, like your friends or your coworkers, or, you know, other people that are important to you or are important in your life. So I am naturally shy and very introverted as it is. So I knew I wasn't actually going to tell them on my own anyways, because I had been questioning it for a while at that point, for like a month or two, maybe 3. But not just kind of like in the back of my mind, like hardcore considering it. I think I watched every single transgender documentary on YouTube within a 3-week period, all between the hours of 9 p.m. and 3 in the morning. And I watched them all at least twice, because I just wanted answers about why I felt this way, how I was feeling, and how do I go through with it? How do I, like, what are the steps from there? It was just a rough time all around, but I wouldn't change it any other way, because I know that if my mom hadn't been told for me, I wouldn't have come out to them when I did, or at all, really. I wouldn't know how. yeah. This is already 20 minutes. I'm just gonna go. Have a good night.